storytelling project, The Touching Story. He has served 2 terms as president of this club and has held every club officer and also being an area governor, which helped him earn his Distinguished Toastmasters, DTM. He has been a chief judge and contest master for the district and the sergeant at arms for the TI International Conference. He lives Toastmasters. He thinks about it every day. He's also engaged to DTM, and he probably wouldn't be engaged if she wasn't a DTM. Jane Strong, past president of this club, Woman of the Year in Tampa Bay, and CEO of Happy Plus. Put that in to get a few extra points. Fellow Toastmasters, it gives me great pleasure to introduce your next speaker tonight, DTM Toastmaster Jeff Thomas. Shake it off and take a step up. Shake it off and take a step up. Jeff Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Mr. President, good evening, fellow Toastmasters and most welcome guests. And to all my Canadian friends, raise your hand if you're Canadian.
I'm semi-Canadian.
I think we got more Canadians than we do Americans in here. It's great to have the Canadians, and I call them part of my family.
We are part of your family.
Let me ask you something. And raise your hand. Have you ever lost something? Everybody raised their hand there. Let me ask you something else. Have you ever lost something, and many years later, going through your cabinet, your file cabinet, and your foot lockers, you found it? Has it happened to you? It happened to me. See, 15 years ago, I was in the Air Force, and I was stationed in Seattle, Washington. And I was on one of my many tours over in Saudi Arabia. So in '98, I had some difficult times. Everything was packed up in Seattle, Washington, while I was over in Saudi Arabia, and put in storage. In '97, these guys, on one of my tours I went on, gave me this bag. And I thought this bag was lost. So a few months ago, we're going through one of my foot lockers. I found this old beat-up foot locker, painted blue, Air Force blue. And then inside the foot locker was my Air Force tent, my sleeping bag, my mess kit, some old candy bars, you know. And below, and I was giving it to the Salvation Army. And on the bottom of this, inside my sleeping bag, was this bag. And I thought this bag was lost. It was given to one of my buddies over one of my last tours in Saudi Arabia. But what was so special about this, because I was going some difficult time, was a letter from my mom, which was very special. And I'll tell you about that later. You see, in Seattle, that was my last assignment in the United States Air Force. I spent a lot of time traveling to the Middle East because we were in charge of the no-fly zone. I was married at the time. I had a wonderful wife, 14 years. She did not like the military. So one of my last tours in Saudi Arabia was my worst, was actually from '97 to '99, was a terrible years for me. Because my wife decided this wasn't for her. It's hard being a military spouse. I don't blame her. Matter of fact, I'm very proud of her, because after we divorced, the 14 years, she married up. She went from marrying a sergeant of the Air Force to marrying a doctor in Seattle. So I'm very proud of her. My wife was Japanese, but she was raised in California, graduated from UCLA, spoke 5 different languages, and she became one of the big people in Shell Oil Company as an interpreter. So I'm very proud of her, and I have nothing against that. But it was a hard life for me. On top of that, being over there in Saudi Arabia, I had some good friends of mine that I worked with in Washington, D.C., and also in Yokota Air Force Air Base, Japan. They were flying over to Germany, and the plane crashed. And there were some good friends of mine, they died. And I was over there, and I couldn't attend their funeral. And then my father had a massive heart attack. Now, everyone knows, being in the military, the only way you can get emergency leave to come home is got to be a death in the family. And my dad hadn't died, had a massive heart attack, had a quadruple bypass, and I wanted to come home to see him. But my commander says, the mission comes first. If your father passes away, you can come home. So I knew my mom was having a rough time, so she wrote this letter to me. But anyway, I was having a rough time, because here I'm in the desert. My sixth tour in the desert, 8 months living in a tent with 10 guys, taking a shower once a week, and eating sea rations. Now, President Clinton, our commander-in-chief, came over in 1998. He gave a major speech in Saudi Arabia. He came, and there was 40,000 military people out in the space. And there was a windstorm going on. He said, guys, I know what you're going through. I feel your pain. I feel your pain. I know you got to live in a tent, taking a bath once a week. I know you miss your family. You miss your wives. You miss your girlfriends. You miss your mistress. But I added that in there. But anyway, everybody go out there, you know, and he's saying, I feel your pain. I go, he doesn't know what we have to go through. But we have to respect him because he's our commander-in-chief. Every Wednesday, it was my time to call home. You're allowed to have a 12-minute morale call, we call it. You can call any place in the world for 10 to 12 minutes to talk to your loved ones. Well, I choose to call my mom. So Wednesday night was my time to call her. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning, Saudi Arabia time, and I think it was like 4 o'clock in the morning in Florida. Now, it was one of these old military phones that when you talk, when you finish, you got to say over. So and it took me a while to get my mom used to it. I kept talking to my mom. I said, Mom, you know, this is a military phone. When I say over, you got to, it's time you to talk. And I talked to her, and I said, over. And she said, over where? It kept going on and on. But we finally got used to that. But I was actually pouring my heart to her. I said, Mom, life sucks. I hate it over here. I mean, my wife left me. She's not happy. You know, Dad, I want to be with Dad. She said, you know, that's part of life. He said, you know, life is not a bowl of cherries. You know, just suck it up and, you know, and just shake it off and move forward. But I don't want my mom to tell me that. I wanted to say, hey, you okay? Everything's gonna be fine. But every Wednesday when I called her, I would kind of pour my heart to her, and she said, suck it up. That's life. Move on. It could be worse. And she said, Dad, did you ever hear about the donkey story? I said, Mom, I don't want to hear about the donkey story. Remember when I told you that when you were 8 years old about this donkey? I said, Mom, I don't want to hear about the donkey story. I want to tell you my problems I have in Saudi Arabia. And this went on for about another 7 months. And this one time I got a letter from her. And I'd like to share this letter from my mom. And she actually enclosed the donkey story. And my mother was really good about writing to me. She actually started making me cassette tapes, which was great because you could talk for hours. And it took about 4 weeks to get to where we're at in Saudi Arabia. But it was nice to listen to the cassette tape and then the letter and stuff. But she wanted to tell me the donkey story, and I want to share the donkey story with you. One day, a farmer's donkey fell into a well. The donkey cried for hours as the farmer tried to figure out what to do. He finally decided the donkey was way too old, and the well needed to be covered up anywhere. It just wasn't worth to retrieve that old donkey. So he invited all his neighbors to come over and help him. They all grabbed shovels and began to shovel dirt into the well. At first, the donkey realized what was happening, and he cried out loud, horribly. Hee-haw, hee-haw. Just like that. Then to everyone's amazement, the donkey quieted down. He couldn't even hear a sound. He couldn't even hear him breathing anymore. The farmer knew very soon the donkey would be dead. A few shovel loads later, the farmer finally looked down the well and was astonished at what he saw. With every shovel of dirt that hit his back, the donkey was doing something amazing. He would shake it off and take a step up. Shake it off and take a step up. As the farmer's neighbors continued to shovel dirt on top of the donkey, he would shake it off and take a step up. Pretty soon, everyone was amazed that the donkey stepped up over the edge of the well and trotted off. Now my mom would tell me, Jeff, the moral of the story, life is going to shove dirt on you. All kinds of dirt. Some of it might have manure in it. And you're going to smell awful. But that's life. The trick is to getting out of the well, is to shake it off and take a step out. So fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests, and to my Canadian family, each of our troubles is a stepping stone. We can get out of the deepest wells just by not stopping, but never, never giving up. So shake it off, she said, and take a step up. Madam Toastmaster.